Good evening, everyone. So, in last class, we talked about Satvahanas. We completed Satvahanas and we talked about Sangam age of South India. Then again, we shifted our focus back to what is happening in North India. And we just had started our discussion that now you have another empire called Gupta Empire. So, there are many theories behind who exactly are Guptas. The Gupta rulers, who are they? The most accepted theory is that they were actually Vaishyas initially. And why this theory is so much accepted? Because as per Dharma Sutras, different Varnas have to adopt different title. So for example, the title for Kshatriyas, for example, is Varman. Many rulers, and we do have many rulers with the name Varman. And title for Vaishyas is Gupta. And title for Shudra, for example, is Das. And title for Brahman will be Sharman. So Sharman, Varman, Gupta and Das. So because we are talking about rulers with the surname of Gupta, and that does tell you that maybe initially they were Vaishyas. So this is the most accepted theory. But at the same time, I should tell you that there are some alternative theories also. Some historians believe that they may have been Kshatriyas in fact. Some historians believe that they may have been Brahmins also. So that is also a theory. But the most accepted theory is that they are considered to be of Vaishya origin. They initially may have been feudatories of Kushanas, but with decline of Kushana rule, they became independent. And in the course of time, their kingdom became empire. And how do we know that? Because Kushana kingdom declines by about 230 AD, the last Kushana rule, 230 AD, and Gupta kingdom starts in about 265, 268 AD. So there is a gap of hardly few decades, 2-3 decades. So because of that, many historians feel that they may have been feudatories of Kushanas, but in the course of time, with their decline, they became independent, Guptas became independent, and it became an empire. So it became a very prosperous empire, and I told you in the last class itself that there are many sources. We do not have dearth of sources here. We have lot of information about Gupta Empire. Lot of information does not mean everything, but we have sufficient information because most of the greatest literature of ancient India, it was actually compiled during this period. This is called Golden Age of Ancient India. We discussed this also, mainly because of contribution to art and culture, contribution to science and astronomy, contribution to medicine, contribution to literature, and also because of the fact that it was a very prosperous empire, and which can be attributed to with a very simple fact that they issued the largest number of gold coins in ancient India. Right? जो Gupta's numismatics है वो unmatched है. UPSC ने in fact इस बार एक बार क्वेश्चन पूछा था कि जो गुप्ता का numismatics है वो unmatched है compared to any kingdom before them or after them, or especially after them. That across all after kingdoms जो है, it is unmatched. So and you just had to write, discuss. The word was discuss. So UPSC ने एक बार numismatics पे क्वेश्चन पूछा था. Again this generally in art and culture you do not read about numismatics. आप coinage नहीं पढ़ते हो art and culture में. UPSC के syllabus में history नहीं दे रखा है. In syllabus there is no mention of ancient history. In mains, in prelims there is, but in mains there is no mention of ancient history. But जो numismatics वाला question है, that is again one of those areas where knowing the sources of history will help you a lot in answering this question, that how do we know about a particular time period? How do we know about particular group of rulers? So in last class I was talking about sources, that what are the major sources to know about Gupta rule. I told you that first of all सबसे जो important source है वो Puranas है, because most of the Puranas were compiled during Gupta period, and Guptas because themselves were great patron of Hinduism, they were worshippers of Lord Shiva and Vishnu. So because of that most of the Puranas write in detail about them. Puranas are not work of history. Again, always remember that they are religious work, but the time period they have been compiled in, that does reflect the social and economic reality, right? But at the same time, they will also talk about important kings. They will talk about their, let's say, gotra kya hai, origin kya hai, things like that. And historians ka job hoga how to extract information from them, that and how to verify that information from other sources and come up with a picture. That will be the job of historians. Because history writing has been happening in India for now more than a century. So we have quite a fair bit of idea about this period. So Puranas are a very important source. Another source is work of Kalidasa. Kalidasa is often called Shakespeare of India, which is frankly it only tells you that how history writing has been monopolized by Europeans. That we have an author who lived 100 years after Kalidasa, and he is now called, Kalidasa is called Shakespeare of India. If anything, it should be Kalidasa of Europe, perhaps will be Shakespeare. But I'm just highlighting it here that this is basically, it does tell you one thing, that we have Europeans mainly wrote history of India. So in any case, one of the greatest Sanskrit dramatists who lived in ancient India, he was one of the Nauratnas of Chandragupta II, Vikramaditya, and he wrote many books. Many of those are dramas, these are stories, but again, stories written in a particular historical perspective that will tell you a lot about this particular time period. Then there is another very famous book written by, we talked about Mudra Rakshas, Vishakha Dutt ने जो लिखी थी Mudra Rakshas, हमने discuss किया था Mauryan period के time पे. That, by the way, Vishakha Dutt lived during Gupta period, okay? Gupta period. And Vishakha Dutt जो Mudra Rakshas का जो plot है, that story is of Chandragupta Maurya, and then that story is of Rakshas. So first part of Mudra Rakshas is that how Chandragupta Maurya defeats Nand and becomes the ruler, and the second part is that how there is a minister called Rakshas who is always plotting to kill him, but he is always outwitted by Chanakya, and later he becomes one of the minister of Chandragupta Maurya himself. Then there is another book by Vishakha Dutt. That name of the book is Devi Chandraguptam. Now Devi Chandraguptam is story of Gupta Empire of Chandragupta II, who took the title of Vikramaditya. And there is a very interesting story about, there is a very interesting story in Devi Chandraguptam, which for many years historian thought that it is just a history, it is just a story. It does not have historical basis. So अगर आप Gupta genealogy देखोगे, so it starts with Shri Gupta, Ghatotkacha, then Chandragupta I, who becomes the first ruler of Gupta Empire. अभी तक kingdom है. It becomes an empire. And then you have Samudragupta, who is considered the greatest conqueror in ancient India because he fights, he is a restless conqueror. He is continuously fighting battles. And as per a very famous inscription which is found in Prayagraj called Prayag Prashasti. So Prayag Prashasti mentions that he never loses a single battle. And he take all these grand titles which only can be taken by a great emperor. And all of the rulers have to accept his authority. So, and by the way, he is again compared with Napoleon, which again is quite a stupid comparison, because first Napoleon lived many years after Samudragupta, and Napoleon finally is defeated and he dies in a prison. Samudragupta never gets defeated as per this Prashasti. But often Samudragupta is compared with Napoleon. He is called Napoleon of India. So Samudragupta, then the third king, historians often have thought that it is Chandragupta II, who took the title of Vikramaditya, the most famous Vikramaditya of ancient India. And during his reign, the Gupta Empire reaches its zenith, the maximum territory of India, which includes entire Pakistan, part of Afghanistan, entire Deccan also, except southern India, except part of northeast. In fact, he also captures Kamrup kingdom. So you have all this region occupied by one kingdom, Gupta Empire. But देवी चंद्रगुप्तम का जो स्टोरी है वो स्टोरी ये है कि बिफोर चंद्रगुप्त टू एंड बिटवीन समुद्रगुप्त एंड चंद्रगुप्त टू फॉर फ्यू इयर्स देयर वाज अनदर रूलर नेम्ड रामगुप्त एंड द स्टोरी इज देवी चंद्रगुप्तम का जो मेन प्लॉट है वो ये है दैट रामगुप्त वाज अटैक्ड बाय शाका रूलर्स, शाकाज ऑफ गुजरात. रिमेंबर लास्ट क्लास में मैंने बताया था वेस्टर्न क्षत्रप्स, शाकाज ऑफ गुजरात. शाकाज वेर फॉर्मिडेबल फो, दे वेर फॉर्मिडेबल. सो दे अटैक्ड रामगुप्त. And they basically gave him an option that we will cease our attack, we are not going to attack you unless you give your wife to the king of Shakas. And Ramgupt he turns out to be a person who does not want war. He turns out to be, as per Devi Chandraguptam, a person who is not brave at all, and he accepts this, that he sends his wife, he plans to send his wife to Shaka rulers. But Chandragupta II, who later becomes Vikramaditya, he is brother of Ramgupta, one of other sons of Samudragupta. He does not like it, he does not accept it, and he takes this form of queen goes to the camp, opposition camp, kills the Shaka ruler, and comes back unharmed. And now when he comes back, of course people are going to appreciate him a lot, that he is the one who has defeated Shakas, and he has more authority, more people want him to become the ruler. Because of that, Ramgupta starts having jealousy towards him. He wants to plot that how he can kill his own brother. So Chandragupta too later basically has this plan where he basically does this drama that he has become mad. But in this entire drama, he kills Ramgupta and he becomes the next ruler. So for many years, historians thought that this is just a story. But now we have found many epigraphical evidences where the term Ramgupta is mentioned. So there was a ruler. अभी जो सबसे accepted theory ये है that there was a ruler. अब ये जो story है, how true is that we do not know. This story कितना historicity है, that part we do not know. Especially the part that wife has been demanded and then he goes to the camp and kills the ruler. That part may be a fiction. But Ramgupta as a ruler existed, that has a now growing acceptance. Many historians believe that there is a ruler named Ramgupta. After that, you have Chandragupta II, and Chandragupta II is the one who has Nauratnas, the first case of Nauratnas in the court. That you have these 9 great poets, 9 great poets of ancient India. Most important is of course Kalidas, and by the way, same is also used by later rulers. For example, you have Sri Krishna Deva Raya and his Ashtadiggaj in Vijayanagar Empire in medieval India. You have Akbar and his Nauratnas, right? So, ये जो है, this idea becomes quite popular. So, Chandragupta II, during his reign, the Gupta Empire reached its zenith. Then, of course, after that, the empire declines, even though it remains powerful for some time, but it declines because of emergence of some regional kingdoms, and especially because of invasion. Now next invasion, which is called Huna invasion, the empire declines, but ये जो पूरा time period of about 200 years है, from 4th century to 6th century, the Guptas influence it so much that जो India का soft power है, it is the maximum, right? So there is a reason why India is called, जो हम पूरा एक word use करते हैं, सोने की चिड़िया and all that. So there is a historical basis of that not only it is just trade, but it is more about ideas, that ideas which are being propagated in India, they are becoming popular across the world, right? Xuanzang, who came to India when Harshvardhan was ruling, Huansang or Xuanzang, they are the same person. He says in his memoir that the greatest scholars of the world come to India for learning. So Guptas is the time period when University of Nalanda is also instituted, one of the greatest university of ancient India. Further renovated by later rulers, right? So Harshvardhana himself and Pala rulers also. But the university starts during Gupta period. So we are going to talk a lot about their administration, what type of economy, what type of society, that is quite interesting we are talking about, and their long lasting contribution to science and astronomy, contribution to medicine, contribution to literature also, not in lot of detail because वो ऐसे भी case discuss होगा आपके art and culture classes में, but फिर भी I'm going to talk about some of the most important contribution one by one. But before that, we were talking about sources. So give this heading, sources. Sources. So we talked about Puranas, we talked about work of Kalidasas. You can write down name of few of the works. Where is the note? So you can write down few of the works, for example, Meghadutam. Raghuvansham, Kumar Sambhavam, Abhigyan Sakuntalam, Abhigyan Sakuntalam, so these are some of the works, major works of Kalidasa. Again, most of these works are works of drama, but at the same time written in a particular historical perspective. I will talk about their coinage and all that, don't worry. There is a question by Afreen that coin of Gupta Empire have any pictorial representation. They do have, and they do tell you about kingdoms. First read of history is interesting, then second and third read looks exhausting. When we experience feudal system, I will talk about feudal system in today's class itself. Gupta kingdom emerged much later to Mauryas. How information from compilations from this age is reliable? Because we have lot of sources. How is it reliable? Because we do not have one sources, but we have many sources, and we can use many of those sources together to find out relevant historical events. Right? So sources ki kami nahi hai. This is the most important reason. Then you have a very famous book, very similar to what Arthashastra is, but Arthashastra is a book of political science. Then there is a book of morality called Niti Sar. The next source can be a book called Niti Sar, written by Kamandak. Then you have Devi Chandraguptam, written by Vishakha Dutt. So, by the way, I should answer this thing that first reading seems interesting, second, third reading becomes exhausting. So, because first reading आप बिल्कुल story की तरह पढ़ रहे हो, story में interest ऐसे भी आता है, but history as a discipline will become interesting जब आप उसको as a history की तरह पढ़ोगे. तो story की तरह तो of course पढ़ना ही चाहिए, सबसे मजा तो तभी आएगा जब आप story की तरह पढ़ते हो. But how do we know about these stories? So I personally feel that why do I mention these sources? In general, any textbook, good textbook will always talk about how do we know about historical events. So it will tell you, it will question you that let's say if you are reading something, then how do we know this information? So if you are interested in, for example, not just stories, but if these stories are given here, then there is a basis to it. Now if there is a basis to it, why is it happening? So I'm very sure in one reading you will not get all these answers. You will have to read it few times. Then you are going to find more and more answers. So a curiosity in the discipline, that is required here. But yes, it will always start with reading as story. I will explain with map. तो मैंने last class में भी दिखाया था, इस class में भी मैं detail में map दिखाऊंगा जो गुप्ता empire का map है. Do not worry. So Devi Chandraguptam, written by Vishakha. Devi Chandraguptam tells you story of Chandragupta II and story of also Ramgupta. For many years, people thought that Ramgupta is a fictional ruler. Then there is a very famous book called Mrich Katika. Written by Shudrak. Mrich Katika, written by Shudrak. अब ये जो शूद्रक है, who exactly is Shudrak? It's quite debatable. Shudrak calls himself to be king. He may have been a feudal, some sort of local ruler under Guptas, but especially in the early phase of Gupta age. So Mrichikatika is a very famous play, by the way, not just in India, across the world. It is one of the most. Mrichikatika literally translates to small vehicles made of clay, clay toys. toys made of clay, Mrich Katika. So that is because it is one of the central theme in this entire play. It's a very famous play, but this famous play is based on many interesting plots, and fundamental theme here is political instability. So Shudra ka historicity as well as identity, all of that is not very clear. He calls himself King Shudrak, he is a king, but exactly which kingdom also, that is also not very clear. But this literature again was compiled during Gupta period, right? Then similarly you have Panchtantra, sabne Panchtantra to suna hoga, right? Jo Panchtantra ke jo stories hain, these are again moral stories, they were also compiled during Gupta period. Vishnu Sharma jo author hain, to aap ye bhi likh sakte ho, this is also a very good source, Panchtantra. Then another very, very important source is accounts of, write down, accounts of Chinese traveler Fahian. Accounts of Chinese traveler Fahian. In which language? In most of the cases the language will be Sanskrit. There will be few cases where language will be Prakrit, but in most of the cases, जो हमने books अभी देखे हैं, they will be in Sanskrit. So Sanskrit literature also again developed a lot during this period of time. And even Kama Sutra by Vatsyayan, that can also be a source. Basically, it tells you about gender relationship. I will repeat, we do not have to pretend what this book is all about, but one of the theme of this book will be gender relationship. So household में responsibilities of male and female members. So social history जानने के लिए this can be again a very good source. Then you have many inscriptions. The most famous which you have to know, you have many epigraphical evidences. तो ये तो written record था. In epigraphy also you have lot of information. तो जो सबसे पहले एक जो है, आपका अभी भी दिल्ली में जाओगे मेहरौली में, जहाँ पे कुतुब मीनार है, नियर मेहरौली you are going to find this iron pillar. So जो मेहरौली iron pillar है, this belongs to Chandragupta I. In fact, there is a very interesting story surrounding Mehrauli iron pillar. Do you guys know how we get the name Delhi? Delhi का नाम दिल्ली कहाँ से आता है? So Delhi in medieval time was ruled by Tomar rulers. Tomar were one of the Rajput clans. Is one of the most famous Tomar ruler will be Anangpal Tomar. Anangpal Tomar, who is considered grandfather of Prithviraj Chauhan. Prithviraj Chauhan, the same person who fought with Muhammad Ghori. Again, those who know the story, they will be able to connect the dots. So anyways, Anangpal Tomar and Tomar dynasty was ruling Delhi. They came across this iron pillar in Mehrauli and they found information written on it. So iron pillar को लेके बहुत सारा जो है myth develop हो गया, that what exactly it is. Now one of the myth which was developed was that iron pillar जो है, it goes to very depth of earth. In fact, it goes to the back of Sheshnag himself, because as per Hindu mythology, earth is resting on the back of Sheshnag. So it goes to the back of Sheshnag himself. So Brahmins warned Tomars that you should not do the excavation work. But Tomar ruler was very much excited. He was quite curious to know that if it is correct or not. So he starts the excavation process. But then in the excavation process, it starts finding red soils. And he thinks that this red soil is from the blood of Sheshnag. So now he is actually scared that this story is actually true. So then he finally basically ensures that let's cover it up. So he starts covering that up. So but despite covering this up, ये जो pillar है, this pillar remained loose, ढीली. It remained ढीली. So Delhi was called Dhillika. From Dhillika, it is called Delhi. So Delhi का जो नाम है, it was Dhillika. And now we call it Delhi. So again, not a part of history as such, but very famous part of legend. So anyways, Mehrelio Iron Pillar, that's a very famous inscription. Then the most famous inscription here is Prayag Prashasti. Prayag Prashasti. Prayag Prashasti. Prashastis were basically written in the praise of kings. So Samudragupta का जो प्रशस्ति है, that is written in one of the pillars. In fact, it's quite interesting that this is actually an Ashokan pillar. So on the same pillar where Ashoka is preaching about non-violence, in the same pillar you find this great poetry, work of poetry, where a personal description of Samudragupta along with all his military campaigns are written down. So historians did lot of work कि जितने भी kingdoms लिख रखे हैं यहाँ पे, Samudragupta talks about defeating kingdoms all across India. So historians have actually now confirmed existence of most of these kingdoms. That you have theory, so it is not just story as such, but you have now historical confirmation from other sources that yes, these kingdoms existed, and ये जो प्रशस्ति है, it is talking about all of these kingdoms. So if you read this प्रशस्ति, you come across a restless conqueror who is continuously fighting battles, and as per this प्रशस्ति, he did not lose a single battle. तो आप एक लाइन में लिख सकते हो, it was composed by the court poet of Samudragupta. It was composed by court poet of Samudragupta. Hari Sen. Court poet of Samudragupta, Hari Sen. Then you also have Junagadh rock inscription. Junagadh rock inscription of Skandgupta. Skandgupta. By the way, this is the same Junagadh rock inscription जो रुद्रदमन के केस में हमने डिस्कस किया था. One of the western Kshatrap ruler, Rudradaman. So, and in this Junagadh rock inscription, it was mentioned that there is a lake called Sudarshan Lake where repair work was done by Rudradaman. This lake was again destroyed, and further repair work was done by Skandgupta. So this is also one of the inscription. So there are many epigraphical, apart from that there are many official records of Guptas, then there are records by their local rulers, by many Shrenis. Shrenis are guilds of merchants. They also have lot of information about their own records. So all of these are important sources. Then third and a very important source is numismatics also. जो गुप्ता coinage है, so जो गुप्ता coinage है, that tells you a lot of information about the name of the king, his personal character, as well as some of their ideas, religious beliefs also. As Guptas issued gold coins on a very large scale. You find gold coins issued by Chandragupta I, by Samudragupta, by Chandragupta II. Later, in later Gupta rulers, the number of gold coin declines, number of silver coins increases. So it does tell you that this is also an indication that empire declined after a point of time. But jo rulers हैं, they had accepted now what was started by Greek rulers, that you have king and his image, right, which was used by Shakas, which was used by Satvahanas, and now the same thing was also used by Guptas. So Gupta के जो coinage हैं, that does tell you a lot about their name, their religious ideas, or even their personal character. Let me show you with an example. So for example, this is a coin. This is a coin issued by Chandragupta I of Gupta dynasty, where the king and queen both are portrayed together. Queen is a Lichvi princess, Kumara Devi. So by the way, this is also, some historians feel that Lichvis, even though their power had declined, remember same Lichvis of Mahajanpad period, who were ruling Vajji, जिसका capital वैशाली था. So Lichvi clan, even though their power had declined, but they were important enough that Gupta rulers married to this clan to increase their prestige. तो अब सेम चीज को दो सेट ऑफ हिस्टोरियंस अलग अलग तरीके से इंटरप्रेट करते हैं. Historians who believe Gupta to be Vaishyas, they think that they married to Lichvi clan to enhance their prestige. Lichvis were Kshatriyas. But historians, other historians tell you that because they are Kshatriyas, they are marrying to Kshatriya clan. Right? So same event, but it is being interpreted to two different things. एक ये क्वेश्चन बार बार आता है. So I think क्लास के बाद में भी बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स पूछते हैं. So let me answer this question, that what is the difference between script and language? If I have not addressed this question, I should have. देखो, language जो होता है, that is mainly spoken form of communication. What I am speaking right now, this is English as a language. Or if I speak Hindi, Hindi as a language. So spoken form of communication है, that is what language is. But how do I write these languages? The rules and regulations which I follow to write these languages, that will be the script. Right? जैसे for example, let's say I say that my name is Abhishek. Right? So I can use Roman script also, or I can use Devanagari also. कोई problem तो नहीं है ना? So I can use same script to write many languages. Many languages can have, let's say for example, very similarity, but the script which is used will be very different. A very good example is Hindi and Urdu. I'm very sure that all of you can understand at least 90% of the Urdu. But if Urdu is written, you'll not be able to understand because we are using an entirely different script. So script and language का simple सा difference ये है that while language is a spoken form of communication, which has its own set of rules and regulations, जो script होगा, that will be rules and regulations, grammar, all of that associated with written form of communication. So I can use one script to write many languages. That should be very clear. So when I say that Brahmi script is used and language is Prakrit, or Brahmi script is used and language is Sanskrit, I hope the difference is clear, right? So anyways, numismatics is a very important source. These two coins issued by Samudragupta. This coin, I will get this slide uploaded here. Here Samudragupta is holding a veena. So in Prayag Prashasti, apart from he being a great conqueror, he is also a poet and he is also a great musician. And this coin basically he is holding Garud Dhwaj. Garud was their royal symbol. Garud, which is again a vehicle of Lord Vishnu. So he is holding a Garud Dhwaj, which basically signifies their religious belief that they are patron of Vaishnavism. So depiction of king into different poses, that does tell you about their beliefs. Similarly, these coins are issued by Chandragupta II, who took the title of Vikramaditya. This is the very famous Prayag Prashasti on the same pillar in Allahabad, now Prayagraj. On the same pillar where Ashokan inscription is mentioned, you can easily see that from the lion, which was basically a royal symbol of Maurya rulers. But on the same pillar, you find this Prashasti, which belongs to Samudragupta, and that is written by Harishan, who is court poet of Samudragupta. So numismatics also plays a role to know about Gupta kingdom. And last but not the least, archaeology. Archaeology. So we have lots and lots of resources. Yes, Prashasti, Prayag Prashasti will be part of epigraphy. Okay. Give the heading political development. Political development. So let's first talk about the political development, then we'll talk about society and economy and administration, all that. Guptas are, write down in bullet points, Guptas are believed to be feudatories of Kushanas. Guptas are believed to be feudatories of Kushanas. Feudatories of Kushanas. They may have been Vaishya. They may have been Vaishyas. They may have been Vaishyas. अब ब्रैकेट में लिख लेना because of their surname. This information जो historians use करते हैं, this is because of their surname. Because of their surname. So the reason is very simple. I will repeat. Dharma Shastras mention titles for different varnas. Title for Brahmins will be Sharman. Title for Kshatriyas will be Varman. Title for Vaishyas will be Gupta. And title for Shudras will be Das. So feudatories of Kushanas. The Gupta period is referred as Golden Age of Ancient India. Golden Age of Ancient India. Golden Age of Ancient India because of their contribution in literature, comma, science and astronomy, medicine, art and architecture, and issuing the largest number of gold coins in ancient India. Issuing the largest number of gold coins in ancient India. जो भी क्लासिकल म्यूजिक हम पढ़ते हैं या जो क्लासिकल डांसेस हैं, नॉट ऑल ऑफ देम बट मेनी ऑफ द डांसेस मे हैव स्टार्टेड, और जो बिगिनिंग फेज है इट मे हैव अकर्ड ड्यूरिंग दिस फेज ऑफ टाइम. सो दैट इज व्हाई आई मेंशन्ड आर्ट एंड आर्किटेक्चर ऑल्सो. फॉर एग्जांपल इन नॉर्थ इंडिया जो पूरा टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर ऑफ इंडिया है, दिस कैन बी डिवाइडेड मेनली इनटू 3 कैटेगरीज. In North India, there is a category called Nagara style of architecture. In South, you have Dravida style of architecture. And in Deccan region, especially in the region of Karnataka, you have what we call Vesara style of architecture. So Nagar has its own feature. जो North India के जो temples होंगे, उनके खुद के अपने features होंगे. South India के temples होंगे, उनके अपने खुद के unique features हैं. जो Vesara style of architecture है, it has feature of both Nagar and Dravid, but it also has its own unique feature. So Vesara style of architecture. So the Nagar style of architecture है, that mainly develops in early medieval India by most of the Rajput clans who were ruling the region of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Gujarat, and also in the region of Bengal, Kashmir, Odisha. But the genesis of Nagar style of architecture, it goes to Gupta period. That the first temple on a higher raised platform that was started during Gupta period. So जो टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर, जो नगर स्टाइल ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर स्पेशली हम देखते हैं, उसका जो जेनेसिस है, इट गोज बैक टू गुप्ता पीरियड. So hence architecture. Similarly, a new type of sculpture tradition which is called Sarnath school of sculpture. अभी तक हमने 3 स्कूल पढ़ा था पास्ट में, मथुरा, गंधार and Amravati. Then there is another school of sculpture called Sarnath school of sculpture which developed during Gupta period. So in all art form, in literature, in music, in dance, you have some contribution of Gupta period. Ajanta is one of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. सबको पता होगा जो अजंता एलोरा केव्स हैं. तो जो अजंता, even though it was not patronized by Gupta rulers, it was patronized by Vaktak rulers who are by the way contemporary of Guptas, but this also happened during Gupta age. जो अजंता, which is one of the most grand UNESCO World Heritage Site from India, that जो अजंता cave architecture है और जो cave paintings हैं, it occurred during Gupta period. But at the same time, they were not patronized by Gupta rulers. I will make you write this also, but मैं बता भी देता हूँ कि it was patronized by Vaktak rulers who are contemporary of Gupta kings. Write down the next bullet point. The dynasty was founded by Sri Gupta in around mid of 3rd century. In around mid of 3rd century. In around mid of 3rd century. His son Ghatotkacha was the second ruler. Both these rulers adopted the title of Maharaja. Both these rulers adopted the title of Maharaja. Give the heading Chandragupta I. Chandragupta I. So Chandragupta I ruled from about 320 to 335 AD. (320 to 335 AD). Write down in bullet points. He was son of Ghatotkacha. He married a Lichvi prince, Kumar Devi. To strengthen the position of Guptas. He issued coins with pictures of both king and queen. He assumed the title of Maharaja Dhiraj. And is generally considered the first king of Gupta Empire. So that should be very clear. If let's say, for example, if there is a statement that Chandragupta is the founder of Gupta dynasty, that will not be a correct statement. The answer will be Sri Gupta. He is the first king of this dynasty. But if the statement is that Chandragupta is generally considered as the first ruler of Gupta Empire, we are talking about a small kingdom around Patliputra region during Sri Gupta and Ghatotkacha time, because their capital became Patliputra. Guptas maintained Patliputra, again became a very important city during Gupta period. And throughout Gupta period, for majority of duration, they maintained Patliputra as their capital, even though Chandragupta too had second capital at Ujjain. So, if statement is that Chandragupta I is, let's say for example, first great king of Gupta Empire, that statement will not be wrong. But he is not the founder of dynasty. That should be very clear. Contemporary का simply मतलब होता है same time पे. There is a question that what is the meaning of phrase contemporary of Guptas? Contemporary का मतलब होता है same time पे. That Vaktak rulers and Gupta rulers, they ruled at same time but different regions of India. Vaktak rulers ruled the region which initially was ruled by Satavahanas, जो Deccan region है. जो गुप्ता का जो रूल है, initially it was centered in North India, but later it extended to significant part of India. Give the next heading. Samudragupta. 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 So he ruled from about 335 to 375 AD. That is also true. There is a statement by Ankesh that in some books it is mentioned that जो Mehrauli iron pillar है, that is constructed by Chandragupta II. That is actually correct. In some books it is mentioned, but this is again a debatable thing. So जैसे एक theory ये भी है that it may have been erected by Chandragupta I, but later more inscription, more inscribing of text occurred during Chandragupta II. So that is correct. जो Mehrauli iron inscription है, in some textbook it is mentioned that it was erected by Chandragupta II, but at the same time you also find in some text that it was done by Chandragupta I. So this is debatable, because 1 and 2 we use it for our purpose to distinguish between rulers. They did not use Chandragupta I or Chandragupta II. They called themselves Chandragupta only, right? So that is why this debate exists. Anyways, write down few things in Samudragupta. As per Prayag Prashasti, as per Prayag Prashasti, as per Prayag Prashasti, he followed a policy of war and conquest. He followed a policy of war and conquest. War and conquest. He was a restless conqueror. He was a restless conqueror. He was a restless conqueror who defeated many kingdoms, in different part of the country, in different part of the country, such as rulers of Ganga Yamuna Doab, Central India, Ganga Yamuna Doab, Central India, comma, Deccan and South, and even Shakas and Kushans in Western India. Shakas and Kushans in Western India. Shakas and Kushans in Western India. However, his direct control, his direct control included northern territories, included northern territories. Online students, I have a very simple request from you. Please wait for the topic to be over. I will give you ample of time to ask questions. What were invasions? What is feudalism? हम करेंगे discuss. So just please, because if you are, again I will repeat this, if you are typing then you are not listening. So please wait for the lecture to be over. I will give you ample of time to ask questions. Don't worry. Write down the next bullet point. A ruler of Sri Lanka, Meghvarman, a ruler of Sri Lanka, Meghvarman, Meghvarman sent a missionary to Samudragupta, sent a missionary to Samudragupta, for permission to build a Buddhist temple at Bodh Gaya, to build a Buddhist temple at Bodh Gaya, to build a Buddhist temple at Bodh Gaya, which was accepted, which was accepted. चाइनीज सोर्सेस से मिलती है हमको मेनली, ये जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है दिस मेनली कम्स फ्रॉम चाइनीज सोर्सेस. अब यही चीज जो प्रयाग प्रशस्ति में ऐसे लिखा हुआ है दैट इवन रूलर्स ऑफ श्रीलंका आर पेइंग देयर ट्रिब्यूट टू समुद्रगुप्त, बट दिस मे नॉट हैव बीन एज सच पेइंग ट्रिब्यूट बट सिंपली आस्किंग परमिशन बिकॉज बोध गया इज पार्ट ऑफ गुप्ता टेरिटरी. तो ये जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है दैट अ मिशनरी हैज बीन सेंट टू समुद्रगुप्त दैट कम्स फ्रॉम चाइनीज सोर्सेस. राइट डाउन द नेक्स्ट बुलेट पॉइंट. After conquering territories, he performed Ashwamedh sacrifice. He performed Ashwamedh sacrifice. He performed Ashwamedh sacrifice and called himself restorer of Ashwamedh, called himself restorer of Ashwamedh in his coins, called himself restorer of Ashwamedh in his coins. He is often called Napoleon of India. He is often called Napoleon of India because of his military conquests. Because of his military conquests. Because of his military conquests. Napoleon was emperor of France. Initially he was one of the commander, but later became emperor. A product of French Revolution, right? World history में पढ़ाया जाएगा आपको नेपोलियन के बारे में. A product of French Revolution. हाँ, so in this case, once you have conquered territory, all kings have already accepted your authority. Now you lose your horse and nobody is able to challenge your horses. So sacrifice, this is more of a symbolic sacrifice, again to attain authority. So not exactly how the story goes that horse goes to different kingdoms and if horse has been stopped then a war will occur. Here after conquering, because everybody now is paying tribute to you, so in a way your horse is going to roam around freely without any type of conflict with any of the kingdoms. So that is the reason why after conquering the territory. Write down the next bullet point. Yes. What is that? That is also true. So yeah, this is especially true in case of his campaign in Deccan and South. That Samudragupta का जो campaign है, I told you जब हम discuss करें, but I did not know that there is a term for it. Thanks for that. So, but yes, he accepts this, he adopts this policy that this conquest is not because of, again remember our Shastra का जो concept था, Ashur Vijayan or Loph Vijayan, that he adopts this policy of Dharma Vijayan, that he conquers, but then he leaves the kingdoms in their hand only. So it is not just because he has this desire to conquer their wealth or land, but that is true for Deccan and southern territorial expansions. In case of Ganga Yamuna Doab, he does acquire all of this territory and he does annex all of that territory as part of his own kingdom. Okay, write down a next bullet point. He is also called Kaviraj. He is also called Kaviraj and praised for his musical skills. Praised for his musical skills. For example, there are coins. There are coins who depict Samudragupta holding a veena. Who depict Samudragupta holding a veena. Samudragupta holding a veena. Pius has a question, Napoleon come later, Kalidas, why they are called? आपने class late join किया. This is the part I started the class with. That this is such comparison with Napoleon or comparison with Kalidas. That is mainly because history, initially it was written by European historians and such comparisons were often used. Right on, he was an ardent follower of Vaishnavism. He was an ardent follower of Vaishnavism. He was an ardent follower of Vaishnavism. Vaishnavism. But also became a patron of Buddhism. For example, a Buddhist scholar, Vasubandhu, was patronized by him. A Buddhist scholar, Vasubandhu, was patronized by him. Patronized by him. Give the next heading, Chandragupta II. So he may have ruled from (376) to 413 AD. बिल्कुल डिस्कस करेंगे, लिख भी लेंगे हम, इसी में लिख लेंगे हम साथ में. तो even though this timeline I am mentioning 376 to 413 AD, but now many historians believe that from about 376 to 380 it was actually ruled by another ruler called Ramgupta. तो आप लिख सकते हो, as per Devi Chandraguptam written by Vishakhadat, as per Devi Chandraguptam written by Vishakhadat, Ramgupta succeeded Samudragupta. Ramgupta succeeded Samudragupta. Ramgupta succeeded Samudragupta. He surrendered his wife. He surrendered his wife to his enemy Shakas. To his enemy Shakas. However, Chandragupta II sneaked to the enemy camp, killed the king, killed the Shaka king, killed the Shaka king, and rescued the queen. Killed the Shaka king and rescued the queen. I will repeat, this was initially considered only as a part of story, but now we have found some inscriptions, some names with Ramgupta, title of Maharaja Dhiraj, coins issued by him. So we have found evidences for his existence. So now, जो new textbooks हैं, they do talk about existence of Ramgupta as a historical personality. But this story, how, again I will repeat, this story, does it have historicity? इसका और कोई confirmation नहीं है. Because Devi Chandraguptam again is a play. It is a play, it is narrating a story, where one of the character is Ramgupta. So Ramgupta exists, we know from other sources. But how much true this story is, we have no way of confirming that. लिख सकते हो? Next bullet point. During Chandragupta II, Gupta dynasty reached its zenith. Gupta dynasty reached its zenith through conquests and marriage alliances. Through conquests and marriage alliances. And marriage alliances. Afrin has a question: after rescuing the queen married to Chandragupta. As per Devi Chandraguptam, yes, that is the plot. So Devi Chandraguptam ka plot hai that queen marries Chandragupta II after that. Write down in next bullet point. He married a Naga princess, Kuber Naga. He married a Naga princess, Kuber Naga. And had a daughter named Prabhavati Devi. Had a daughter named Prabhavati Devi. Write down next bullet point. Prabhavati was married to Prince Rudrasena II. Prince Rudrasena II of Vaktak dynasty. Of Vaktak dynasty. I will repeat, Vaktaks, same territory after Satavahanas. They were allies of Guptas, at least initially they were allies of Guptas. Later, of course, they had conflict with Guptas. But this alliance with Vaktaks proved to be very useful, because Shakas, even though they had been uprooted from northwest frontier, in Gujarat they maintained a very strong hold. So now with this alliance, Vaktaks and Guptas together, they attacked Shakas, and Shakas were completely uprooted. So the Shaka western Kshatraps, which had ruled from about 1st century AD for hundreds of years now their rule has been uprooted by about 400 AD. So for almost 300 years they ruled the region of Gujarat, but finally they were defeated by Chandragupta II. आप लिख सकते हो? This alliance was very useful. This alliance was very useful as Shakas were uprooted from Gujarat and Western Malwa. Shakas were uprooted from Gujarat and Western Malwa. Western Malwa by Chandragupta. By Chandragupta. After this victory, Ujjain became the next capital. Ujjain became the next capital. Ujjain became the next capital along with Patliputra. Along with Patliputra. Ujjain became the next capital along with Patliputra. He adopted the title Vikramaditya. He adopted the title Vikramaditya and Singh Vikram. So Vikramaditya literally will translate to as powerful as sun, and Singh Vikram will translate to as powerful as a lion. Vikramaditya and Singh Vikram. During his reign, a Chinese traveler Fahian visited India. Chinese traveler Fahian visited India and wrote in detail about India and its people. Wrote in detail about India and its people. Write down Udaygiri cave inscription. Udaygiri cave inscription calls him Digvijay. Calls him Digvijay. Calls him Digvijay, conqueror of all directions. Conqueror of all directions. Digvijay, conqueror of all directions. His court at Ujjain was adorned by 9 famous scholars. His court at Ujjain was adorned by 9 famous scholars known as Navratnas. Adorned by 9 great scholars, Navratnas. They were following Kalidas, We already have talked about many of his work. Raghuvansham, Meghdutam, Abhigyan Shakuntalam, mainly known for his romantic work. Most of his plays had romance as its central theme, but this romance is happening in a proper political conquest. Right? So Kalidas, second, Amar Singh, एक लाइन बस यहाँ पे लिख लेना. His work Amar Kosh, his work Amar Kosh is a vocabulary of Sanskrit words, is a vocabulary of Sanskrit words. It is divided into three parts. It is divided into three parts called Trikand. It is divided into three parts called Trikand. Third, and a very important name, Varahamir. Varahamir. He was an astronomer and astrologer. He was an astronomer and astrologer. He was an astronomer and astrologer who composed Panch Siddhantika, His work Brihat Samhita, is considered as a great work in the Sanskrit language. Great work in the Sanskrit language. It deals with many subjects. बहुत सारे theme, astronomy, astrology, marriages, omens, all of these things are aspects of this book. Then also there is another book called Brihat Jataka, which is a book on astrology. Brihat Jataka, a book on astrology. देखो जो सबसे accepted theory ये है कि जो concept of astrology है. So in ancient India there was a lot of contact with Greeks. Greeks and India had a lot of contact. Because we are talking about, again, Greek Empire was a great empire, and lot of development occurred in political philosophy. For example, some of the greatest philosophers of the world, they lived in Greek kingdoms, starting from Socrates or Plato or Aristotle. All of these great philosophers, or Cicero, all of these philosophers lived in Greek kingdoms. So, and by the way, the philosophy which developed in Greek kingdom and philosophy which developed in Indian subcontinent, they are very different from each other. These are political philosophies. In India, in Indian subcontinent, the most important philosophies are spiritualistic philosophies. That the focus is spiritualism, finding oneself, rather than political setup and economy. Of course, there are exceptions such as Arthashastra or Niti Sar and things like that. But most of the work centered around finding oneself, spiritualism. The central theme will be spiritualism across many philosophies. So, the Greeks, they also had great philosophies developed with very different theme. So, the astrology as a discipline that developed in Greek kingdoms. And even though India did not borrow a lot of things, but it did borrow astrology from Greeks. That is the most accepted theory by historians. Now astrology, how it develops, that also has a very interesting story. That when human beings started settling into civilization, that you have agriculture, by the way, is the very important economic activity. And then you find out that how planets and stars move. Based on that, you have different type of climates, different type of weather, right? You have rainy season, then in some seasons you have famine, you have diseases also. So people associated the climate with movement of planets, which makes sense because movement of planet is decided by their revolution around sun. So there is a direct correlation here, right? That the movement of planets, they are playing a very important role on settling of civilizations, right? So that is how astrology started. But then it became that movement of planets also affect our day-to-day life, right? So what was, for example, with good intention, but then it became a practice which has no scientific basis, right? I'm very sure that many of you have differing beliefs in astrology, but I'm just saying one very simple statement that astrology as such has no scientific basis. How planets move, that in no way can decide how your life will be affected, right? तो अगर कुछ भी exist करता है तो that is simply a correlation. एक ना बड़ा famous statement होता है statistics में, which is called correlation does not mean causation. Now what it means is that causation का मतलब होता है, I'm using two words here, correlation and causation. The meaning of causation is that I can establish causal factors. I have a cause-effect relationship. I know the effects, I know the causes. तो जहाँ पे भी हम establish कर सकते हैं, let's say for example, I open this bottle and I pour the water. Water is falling down because I know the causal factor. I actually am pouring it down. So causality establish करना बहुत बार बहुत मुश्किल होता है. But few times what happens, that two events occurred in time, that one happened later, one happened earlier, they are correlated. The one which happened later and the one happened earlier, the one happened earlier is not a causal factor. But because as it happened, often people confuse such type of correlations with causations. That leads to a lot of superstitions. So superstitions के केस में तो फिर भी इसको distinguish करना बहुत मुश्किल, बहुत आसान है. But in many cases distinguish करना बहुत मुश्किल है. Correlation और causation को distinguish करना, in lots of cases it is quite difficult. But in many cases it is quite simple. जैसे for example our lot of superstitions that बिल्ली ने रास्ता काट दिया तो दिन खराब हो जाएगा. So think about a cat minding her own business and then suddenly there is a drunk person driving and he had an accident and he attributed that accident not on his drunkenness, which is by the way a causal factor, but on this बिल्ली का रास्ता काटना, or the fact that चप्पल उल्टा है तो लड़ाई होगी घर में, things like that, right? So we यहाँ पे by the way this is even not a very good correlation. The correlation is really bad. 1000 times किसी एक का हो गया, again this is a correlation because of some other factor, but then you associate, वो इंसान सबको जाके बताएगा. Those 999 people, they are not going to say anything. That is how such type of superstitions work. That it is a self-sustaining mechanism. That people who may think that it has occurred because of this particular reason, they will be the most vocal about it. People who not suffer from it, they will keep silent. They will not say, I am vocal about it because I have done it 100 number of times. Nothing has happened to me ever. So I'm very sure that cat के रास्ते काटने से कुछ होता नहीं है. Right? So in any case, the point I'm trying to make here, that movement of planets and your personal life, that has no correlation. No causation तो है ही नहीं, correlation भी बहुत खराब है. Right? तो आप जो राशिफल पढ़ते हो कि सुबह सुबह उठ के कि कुछ तो होगा आपके साथ. I feel like these are such general statements that in fact बहुत सारे जो ज्योतिष होते हैं, I do believe in some sort of, like for example few people have this great aptitude to know about you just by, let's say for example, looking at you or looking at your body language, and that is by the way a skill, that knowing about you just by looking at you, and then you associate that skill with some sort of this science called astrology, which does not make a lot of sense. So astrology as such has no scientific backing per se, and the most accepted theory by historians is that we learned astrology from Greeks. We did not learn a lot of things from them, but we did learn astrology from them. Okay? But it is very closely associated with astronomy, right? So for example, जो पंचांग्स हैं, जो पंचांग्स अभी भी बहुत सारे मार्केट में मिलते हैं, they will correctly predict all of the, let's say for example, eclipses, solar eclipse and lunar eclipse, because people invested a lot in about studying the movement of planets. So as long as it is about astronomical prediction, India attained lot of things, India did lot of things correctly. But the moment it start becoming astrology, that movement of planets are changing your life, that does not have any scientific basis. So anyways, Brihad Jataka, that is a great work of astrology. Next is Dhanvantri. Sorry? That is a medieval phenomena. In India, however, that is quite a valid point. In India, people have known for thousands of years now that it is Earth which is revolving around Sun and Earth is rotating on its axis. What you are describing, that Earth is at the center of universe and everything is actually revolving around Sun, that became a very popular idea in medieval Europe, which by the way created a lot of problem. Many people died if they opposed it. So that is a phenomena which happened in medieval Europe. So जो पूरा again, इसीलिए मैंने फर्स्ट क्लास में बोला था, जो पूरा यूरोपियन कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ एडवांस सिविलाइजेशन और वाइट मैंस बर्डन है, मतलब वैसे तो ऐसे भी बहुत स्टूपिड आइडिया है वाइट मैंस बर्डन, बट इवन इट इज नॉट हिस्टोरिकली एक्यूरेट, बिकॉज जो इंडियन सिविलाइजेशनल नॉलेज है दैट वाज मच मोर एडवांस्ड कंपेयर टू what Europeans had attained in ancient or even in medieval times, without any doubt. Yes, you had a question. हाँ, कुंडली एस्ट्रोलॉजी से रिलेटेड है. Write down Dhanvantri. The next name is Dhanvantri. Dhanvantri. इसमें एक लाइन बस लिख लेना. He's considered one of the greatest names in Ayurveda. One of the greatest names in Ayurveda. Shanku, an architect who wrote Shilp Shastra. An architect who wrote Shilp Shastra. An architect who wrote Shilp Shastra. Vararuchi. Vararuchi. Write down. He authored Prakrit Prakash. He authored Prakrit Prakash. A work on Prakrit grammar. A work on Prakrit grammar. So Prakrit again remember as a language. So work on Prakrit grammar. Vetal Bhatt. Vetal Bhatt. Simply write down, he was a magician. He was a magician and author of Mantra Shastra. He was a magician and author of Mantra Shastra. Author of Mantra Shastra. Next, Ghat Karpar. Ghat Karpur. He was an expert in sculpture and architecture. He was an expert in sculpture and architecture. He was an expert in sculpture and architecture. And last, Kahapanaka. Kahapanaka. An astrologer who wrote Jyotish Shastra. An astrologer who wrote Jyotish Shastra. Who wrote Jyotish Shastra. So few names are important here. For example, Varahmir, Kalidas, right? Vararuchi. These 3-4 names are quite important. But apart from that, just because I'm talking about Navaratnas, there are many more names from Gupta period. We haven't talked about, let's say, for example, Vishnu Sharma and his Panchtantra, or for example, Aryabhat and his Bhartiya. By the way, Aryabhat belonged to Gupta period. So Aryabhat and Bhartiya, which is one of the greatest work of mathematics and astronomy in ancient India, right? So even a bigger work than Brihat Siddhantika written by Varahmir. So all of that work belonged to Gupta period. Give the next heading. I will keep saying how to remember these names. How do you remember any name? By, for example, if you have met someone, आप उससे एक बार मिले 2-3 साल बाद मिलोगे, हो सकता है you have forgotten the name. But आप किसी से डेली मिलते हो, आपको ऑटोमेटिकली नाम याद हो जाता है. तो नाम याद रखने का एक ही तरीका होता है that you have to read them again and again. There is only one way. That how do you remember these names? You have to read them again and again. Okay? We'll have to assume that most of them are from top Varnas. Okay? Give the next heading. Kumar Gupta. Kumar Gupta. (415 to 455 AD). Write down. He was son of Chandragupta II. He was son of Chandragupta II. Chandragupta II, who adopted the title of Shakraditya and Mahendraditya. Shakraditya and Mahendraditya. He laid the foundation of Nalanda University. He led the foundation of Nalanda University. Nalanda University, which became a great university of ancient India. A great university of ancient India. Ancient India. एक देखो यूपीएससी के ना कुछ कुछ क्वेश्चंस बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग होते हैं जिसका आंसर आपको किसी भी सोर्स में नहीं मिलेगा. यू हैव टू थिंक देन एंड देयर एंड राइट द आंसर. जैसे राइट दिस क्वेश्चन, गिव दिस क्वेश्चन. बोथ यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ नालंदा एंड तक्षशिला, बोथ यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ नालंदा and Takshila were great center of learning in ancient India, but Nalanda University is considered more of a modern university, Discuss. More of a modern university. Discuss. Let's take a break here. Think about this question. ये क्वेश्चन का आंसर आपको किसी भी टेक्स्ट बुक में नहीं मिलेगा. These are the questions where you have to think then and there and write the answer. तो आप इसको कैसे अप्रोच करोगे? Think about it. And online students, please send your questions to classroom coordinator. There are so many questions. Please आप एक बार इनको जरा ये ऑनलाइन पोर्टल पे बता दो. Send your questions to classroom coordinator. Anyways, the actual question is even more better framed. जो क्वेश्चन यूपीएससी ने पूछा था, it was even a more better framed question. The question was that Takshila University was one of the oldest universities of the world, which were associated with a number of renowned learned personalities of different disciplines. Its strategic location caused its fame to flourish, but unlike Nalanda, it is not considered as a university in the modern sense. Discuss. So similar what we have written, but even in a better framed way. That Takshila, renowned personality, strategic location, but unlike Nalanda, it is not considered as a university in the modern sense. Discuss. कैसे करोगे इसको attempt? Okay. Sorry? Okay. ओके. देखो क्वेश्चन का जो मेन Exactly. देखो ये क्वेश्चन जो है ना, that is actually a very good approach. That in this question basically fundamentally देखो क्वेश्चन क्या पूछ रहा है. क्वेश्चन को पहले तो आपको दो पार्ट में बांटना है इस आंसर को. First you have to explain the part that Takshila known for renowned personality strategic location. So question is making a statement. If you have information, substantiate that. You are going to write the name of Panini. You are going to write that it is located in Gandhar, very important part of Silk Route. All of that you are going to discuss. People from China, people from Central Asia, from India, all of them are coming here and studying at this university. तो जो पहला part of statement का जो question का जो statement है, उसको कोशिश करो जितने आप example लिख सकते हो, लिखो. But that is not the main demand of the question. What is the main demand? That unlike Nalanda, it is not considered a modern university. So basically, why I said that इस क्वेश्चन का आंसर आपको एज सच किसी टेक्स्ट बुक में नहीं मिलेगा. यू हैव टू थिंक देन एंड देयर एंड यू हैव टू राइट आंसर. यू हैव टू कंपेयर नालंदा विथ व्हाट वी थिंक ऑफ यूनिवर्सिटी इन मॉडर्न सेंस. अभी जैसे यूनिवर्सिटीज के क्या होंगे, यूनिवर्सिटीज का जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल ऑल ऑफ यू आर फ्रॉम सम यूनिवर्सिटी. यूनिवर्सिटीज में प्रॉपर सब्जेक्ट्स होते हैं, डिसिप्लिन्स होते हैं, सेमेस्टर्स होते हैं, एंट्रेंस एग्जामिनेशन होता है, राइट. हर ईयर के बच्चों को अलग अलग रखते हैं, पढ़ाते हैं अगर हॉस्टल हो. नालंदा हैड ऑल ऑफ दिस फीचर्स. नालंदा के बारे में ऐसे स्टोरीज हैं कि नालंदा के जो गेट कीपर्स होते थे, जो गार्ड्स होते थे, दे यूज्ड टू टेक अस एंट्रेंस एग्जामिनेशन. दैट यू हैव कम हियर एडमिशन, दे विल आस्क यू क्वेश्चन इन संस्कृत. इफ यू आंसर दैट, यू आर एडमिटेड. So there was again, this may be part of legend, but there is an entrance examination. If you ever have a chance to Nalanda, you should definitely go there. I have been like twice or thrice, and you should definitely go with a guide, because if you just look at the university, you will find that ये तो खंडर है, कुछ है नहीं वहाँ पे. It was burnt by Bhartiya Khilji in medieval times, one of the commander of Mahmud Ghauri. But whatever is left, and go with a guide, and he will explain it to you, that the glory of Nalanda University. You will find जो walls हैं, these walls are so thick कि राजेंद्र नगर में रूम मिलेंगे ऐसे. Right? I'm very sure there are rooms in Rajendra Nagar which are smaller than the walls of Nalanda University. Right? You had a library which burned for months, as the story goes, when it was destroyed. So Nalanda, there are many aspects of Nalanda University. For example, you will find that students from different years are kept in different hostels. There is a proper subject discipline. For example, you are being taught Buddhist philosophy, you are being taught Ayurveda, different disciplines, many subjects, many such disciplines. You also have universities में कैसे आप opt कर सकते हो बहुत सारे subject apart. एक तो आपका core होता है, core subject के अलावा बहुत सारी चीजें और opt कर सकते हो. That was also true in case of Nalanda, that you could opt different disciplines from different type of subjects, right? And then you have also degrees here. So many aspects of modern university that was present in Nalanda University. तो ये आपको कंपेयर करना है. अब ये चीज है, दैट इज व्हाई आई सेड दैट दिस क्वेश्चन, इसका जो आंसर है आपको कहीं मिलेगा नहीं. आपको देन एंड देयर यू हैव टू थिंक, एंड यू हैव टू मेनली यू हैव टू थिंक अबाउट अ मॉडर्न यूनिवर्सिटी. व्हाट आर सम ऑफ द आउटस्टैंडिंग फीचर्स ऑफ मॉडर्न यूनिवर्सिटी and how we can compare on those parameters from Nalanda. And you do find that many of the outstanding features are present in Nalanda University. तो इस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस जो होते हैं बड़े एनालिटिकल क्वेश्चंस होते हैं. इसका कुछ एज सच देखो, एक तो बहुत फिक्स आंसर नहीं होगा, बट अप्रोच मोर और लेस यही रहेगा. आपके एग्जाम्पल्स चेंज हो जाएंगे, आंसर हो सकता है थोड़ा बहुत चेंज हो जाएगा, बट जो अप्रोच होगा यही रहेगा. दैट इन फर्स्ट पार्ट, राइट अबाउट तक्षशिला, राइट अबाउट इट्स लोकेशन, सम प्रोमिनेंट पर्सनैलिटीज. But the main part of the answer is that you are comparing Nalanda with modern university, and in concluding remark you will say that you do not find such features in Takshila but in Nalanda. Hence it is called more of a modern university, right? So such type of questions jo hai that will be there. Okay, Kumar Gupta, we are talking about Kumar Gupta. Right on here, at the end of his reign, 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 Hunas of Central Asia, Hunas of Central Asia attacked from the northwest frontier, attacked from the northwest frontier, northwest frontier, this attack was thwarted by Prince Skandgupta. This attack was thwarted by Prince Skandgupta, who became the next ruler, So Skandgupta mainly may have ruled from 455 to 467 AD. Write on some, give this heading Skandgupta with timeline. Just write down 2-3 lines here. Skandgupta. देखो बहुत सारे किंग के जो इंस्क्रिप्शंस होंगे वो कुछ ऐसे होंगे that they will talk about their lineage, that king before him and all that. तो राम गुप्ता का जो पूरा स्टोरी है, that राम गुप्ता is not mentioned in Guptas का जहाँ पे भी lineage किसी भी इंस्क्रिप्शन में अगर लिखा हुआ है, you do not find the name Ram Gupta. But that is not out of the blue. There is a reason for it. Okay, let's say for example, Samudragupta has 2 sons, Ram Gupta and Chandragupta too. Ram Gupta become the ruler initially, but he is of course replaced by Chandragupta II. अब जो next kings बनेंगे वो Chandragupta II के son and daughters बनेंगे. So अब जो next kings होंगे, they are going to write about Chandragupta II and Samudragupta. They will not mention Ram Gupta. So this was a standard practice. Very similar to that. जो Skandgupta है, Skandagupta name is not mentioned in later Gupta rulers because Skandagupta did not have his own immediate successor. His nephews succeeded him, who did not mention his name. But we find the name Skandagupta from other sources. Right? So this was a very standard practice that in inscriptions where all the kings of the dynasty are mentioned, only your father and grandfather and his father, they will be mentioned, not the uncles. Even if uncles ruled for some time, they will not be mentioned. So this was a standard practice in many kingdoms, including Guptas. आप लिख सकते हो? He adopted the title of Vikramaditya. He adopted the title of Vikramaditya. Comma, repaired Sudarshan Lake. Repaired Sudarshan Lake in Gujarat. Sudarshan Lake in Gujarat. After his death, his successors such as Purugupta, Kumargupta II, Purugupta, Kumargupta II, Buddhagupta, Kumargupta II, Buddhagupta, among others, could not save the Gupta Empire, from disintegration. Could not save the Gupta Empire from disintegration. Could not save the Gupta Empire from disintegration. So before I talk about economics and society on that, just last point as part of political history, give this heading reason of decline of Gupta Empire. Reasons of decline of Gupta. Reasons of decline of Gupta Empire. So the very first and very prominent is Hun invasion. Hun invasion. So very similar to Shakas and Parthians and Kushans. Now you have fifth set of invasion, Hun invasion. And Hun invasion, they were again, they were persistent tribes. They were very persistent in their attacks. That even though Kumargupta defeated them, Skandagupta defeated them, but they were quite persistent in their attack. They also originated in Central Asian region, and one group of Hunas, by the way, they may have went to Roman Empire because Gupta Empire का जो contemporary Europe में आपको दिखता है, that is Roman Empire. Very similar to how Greek Empire is contemporary to Mauryan Empire. Similarly, there is an empire called Roman Empire in Europe, contemporary to Gupta Empire. And one group of Hunas also went to Rome, and they became a very important reason that Roman Empire was disintegrated mainly first into two parts, and later the empire withered away. This is the second part है जो Eastern Roman Empire that led to with capital at Constantinople, which right now Istanbul is. जो Turkey का not exactly capital, but one of the major city of Turkey, Istanbul, that initially was Constantinople. That was capital of Eastern Roman Empire compared to Western. So Roman Empire first got bifurcated and later it withered away. So Huna invasion played a very important role there also, and even in case of Gupta Empire it played a very important role. So there are two rulers which are very prominent. The first is Tormana, and second is a ruler called Mihirkul. So they mainly attacked northwest frontier, occupied the Gandhar, Punjab region and Kashmir region. So initially their attacks were thwarted by Kumar Gupta and Skand Gupta, but they were very persistent, and by the time Tormana was the ruler of Hunas, Tormana was able to occupy all the northwest frontier from Guptas as well as Kashmir, and Mihir Kul, who was son of Tormana, he further made inroads into northern India, but now Mihir Kul was defeated. अब जो Mihir Kul name है, he is mentioned into many texts as destroyer of Buddhist temples, that he persecuted Buddhist monks. Zhuanzang writes about him. When he comes to India, he writes about Mihir Kul. Many Buddhist texts mention that he became destroyer of Buddhist monasteries. There is a story around it that he wanted perhaps to accept Buddhism, but he was rejected by one of the Sanghas, and because of that, he had to take revenge from monasteries. But in any case, Mihir Kul is also mentioned in Raj Tarangini, by the way, because Raj Tarangini traces the history of Kashmir, and Mihir Kul, Tormana already had occupied a part of Kashmir. So even in Raj Tarangini he is mentioned, and that book also mentions that he is persecutor of Buddhist monks. But Mihir Kul later was defeated by an alliance of mainly 3-4 rulers. One of them are Guptas, but then there are some regional kingdoms, and there is a king whose name emerges as the most important king of Malwa, whose name is Yashodharman. He is not a Gupta king, he is king of Malwa. So Yashodharman, Malwa region, again remember it was part of Gupta Empire itself, but at this point of time, Yashodharman plays the most important role in defeating Mihir Kul, and once Mihir Kul is defeated, he declares his independence, and many other rulers declares their independence, and in the course of time, the empire withers away. So you have emergence of lot of rulers. For example, you have another ruler called Pushya Bhutis, where Harshvardhan belonged to. The next important ruler we are going to talk about is Harshvardhan. So Harshvardhan belonged to Pushya Bhuti dynasty from Thanesar. Thanesar जो अभी हरियाणा में जो है. So Pushya Bhutis emerged in Thanesar region, and Pushya Bhutis created a lot of problem for Guptas. So that is the first reason. Second reason is these regional kingdoms जो feudatories थे. These feudatories in the course of time became powerful, rebelled against Guptas, and they did not have power enough to crush such rebellions. And third, and a very prominent reason will be that there was economic decline, mainly because of lack of trade. Trade declined, and overall emergence of regional kingdoms who did not want to pay tributaries to Guptas. So all of that put together led to decline of Gupta Empire. You can just write down in Huna invasion, write down. Huna chief Tormana by 5th century, Huna chief Tormana by 5th century had occupied regions of Punjab, Rajasthan, Kashmir, and also parts of central India. Tormana's son Mihir Kul has been portrayed as a tyrant, in many Buddhist work as well as Raj Tarangini. Raj Tarangini, written by Kalhan. Raj Tarangini is a very famous book. In fact, it is the first book which can be considered that it is a work of history. इससे पहले जो भी books हैं, these are not works of history. We use them to know about history, but Raj Tarangini has a proper historical narrative. that the author starts by saying that a historian's job is not to pass judgment. He has to write things as it is. He does not have to manufacture things. He does not have to write things as per his ideology. He has to write things as he knows. So this is considered as first work of history. Despite that, there are some elements of myth here, like you have elements of magic or charms and things, spells, their impact, all of that, that is also mentioned. But nonetheless, this is a very, very important work of history, especially political history of Kashmir region. Write down in next bullet point. Mihirkul was defeated. Mihirkul was defeated. Mihirkul was defeated by an alliance of Yashodharman of Malwa, Yashodharman of Malwa, Narsimhagupt of Gupta dynasty, Narsimhagupt of Gupta dynasty. Yashodharman declared his independence declared his independence, which was followed by many other feudatories, So the second reason will be rise of regional kingdoms. Rise of regional kingdoms. Write down here. Many feudatories asserted their independence. Many feudatories asserted their independence, such as Yashodharman of Malwa, Pushyabhutis in Thanishar, Pushyabhutis of Thanishar, Vaktak rulers in Deccan, Vaktak rulers in Deccan, among others. And last is economic decline. Economic decline. Write down. With losing of Western India, which was important for trade and commerce, economy crippled, later Gupta rulers did not issue gold coins. and their territories were limited to regions around Patliputra. Regions around Patliputra. Regions around Patliputra. तो सोने जो है तो दो फॉर एग्जांपल कुछ कुछ माइंस हैं, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल यू हैव माइंस इन कर्नाटका, you have some mines, but most of the golds जो हैं they were also for example as part of trade itself, because Gupta they involved in large scale trade from foreign land also and inland trade also. That also may have played a very important role. So mostly from mines, mostly there because they ruled over. And by the way, जो mining and metallurgy है वो गुप्ता का बहुत unmatched है. जैसे अभी भी जो आयरन पिलर है जो मेहरौली का, आप जाओगे तो अभी भी बिल्कुल स्मूथ है. यू डू नॉट फाइंड लाइक लॉट ऑफ डेंट हियर. Still the writings are very much visible. So metallurgy, mining metallurgy was quite efficient during Gupta period. So that were perhaps the primary sources of that. They had resources enough to invest into mining and metallurgy, but later those resources of course got declined. Okay. नहीं जरूरी नहीं है ना. गोल्ड फॉर एग्जांपल गोल्ड माइन करना और गोल्ड को मिंट करना, दे बोथ आर डिफरेंट थिंग्स. दैट शुड बी वेरी क्लियर. जैसे आयरन, आपने आयरन का माइन मिल गया. सो क्वेश्चन इज फॉर एग्जांपल फॉर ऑनलाइन स्टूडेंट्स, द क्वेश्चन इज दैट व्हाई डू वी नॉट फाइंड गोल्ड कॉइन्स इन लेटर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. So because gold coins will be issued by kings, and issuing those coins also requires resources. You have to invest into mining, you have to invest into minting of coins, which by the way is not easier, that also is expensive. You do not have resources enough to do that. So you have to invest into mining and metallurgy before minting coins. But if you do not have resources, you cannot do that, and you cannot mint new coins. Okay. So these are the main reasons why you do not find gold coins in later Gupta period. This was a question asked by UPSC, that the Gupta's numismatics hai, it is unmatched, and in later kingdoms you do not find coins of jo quality of coins, you do not find that in later kingdoms. और आपके पास रिसोर्सेज, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. तो जो रिसोर्सेज आपके पास है नहीं, कॉइन्स आप इशू करने के लिए पहले तो आपको इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ेगा. जैसे अभी बाय द वे एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज जो क्लियर होना चाहिए कि अभी जो हम कॉइनेज की बात कर रहे हैं, दैट वेयर कॉइन्स हैव देयर ओन इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू. कॉइन्स का खुद का अपना इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू है. अभी जो हम मनी यूज करते हैं इसका कोई इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू नहीं है. 100 रुपीज अगर मान लो मैं देता हूं आपको, तो इसका कोई 100 रुपी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. बट यू वैल्यू 100, आई वैल्यू इट 100. Because of that, the system is working, right? It is part of our collective imagination. But in this case, the coins have their own intrinsic value. So we do not find gold coins in later Gupta period. Anyway, so this is about the political, yes. Okay, so the question is that why they were not able to. So in case of Mauryas, I will not say that that is true. Mauryas actually ruled a much larger territory compared to Guptas. But one of the reason will be that even southern kingdoms were very, first of all, powerful. And second reason will be that crossing Vindhya mountain, crossing the entire Deccan region, and then maintaining a supply line so that you, let's say for example, even if let's say Samudragupta emerges conqueror, he defeats Pallavas, and he annexes those territories as part of Gupta empire. But then to actually rule that empire, he has to ensure that there is a continuous supply line where his any type of rebellion, मान लो कि यहाँ पे जो local rulers हैं, they have rebelled against his authority. Now to crush that rebellion, you have to maintain a supply line where there is a continuous supply of forces, weapon and all that. That will require lots and lots of resources, right? So where we are talking about powerful kingdoms in Deccan and South itself, and crossing the entire Vindhya mountain, and then coming to southern region and conquering and then letting it ensure that you also it becomes part of your territory, that is a very difficult thing to do, right? In case of Mauryas, the reason will Mauryas, first of all, they did conquer and they did rule southern regions, but that declined after death of Ashoka. Why Ashoka does not attack Chola Chera Pandya? Because at this point of time he had already renounced his policy of war and conquest. So Kaling was his one of the war which occurred in 8th year of his reign. Right, 8th or 9th year of his reign. That was Kaling war started, right? And after that he renounces his policy of war. So then he does not feel the need to attack southern kingdoms. Dhamma Ghos becomes the policy, right? Okay. So punch marked points. Yeah, punch marked points. Yeah, punch marked points. Okay. Give the heading. अच्छा एक जस्ट लाइन इसमें बस एक ऐड कर सकते हो. So with decline of Guptas, the prominent regional kingdoms in India were Pushyabhutis of Thanesar, Mokharis of Kannauj, Vallabhis of Gujarat, Okay, no, I actually need to. So Vallabhi kingdom, but ruled by Maitrikas. So it needs to be Maitrikas of Vallabhi. That is basically Gujarat. Maitrikas of Vallabhi. Pallavas of Kanchi. Pallavas of Kanchi. Pallavas of Kanchi. And even Chalukyas in the lower Deccan region. So the next topic we are going to discuss, we'll talk about Pushyabhutis. Harshvardhan belonged to Pushyabhuti dynasty. Then we'll also talk about Pallavas, Chalukyas. This will be the last topic. So we are coming to almost 80% of ancient history is coming to a conclusion with Gupta Empire. So give the next heading. We are talking about Gupta Empire itself. Write down, अभी तक अपने political history trace किया है. Let's talk about their administration, society, economy, etc. So give this heading, administration under Gupta Empire. Administration under Gupta Empire. Administration under Gupta Empire. Right on here. The empire was divided into provinces called Bhuktis. The empire was divided into provinces called Bhuktis under the charge of Uparika. Bhuktis were divided into districts. called Vishayas, Bhuktis were divided into districts called Vishayas under the charge of Vishayapati, under the charge of Vishayapati. Vishayas were divided into Vithis. Vishayas were divided into Vithis, which comprised of many villages. Which comprised of many villages. Which comprised of many villages. देखो यूपीएससी ने पास्ट में इस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस पूछ रखे हैं कि जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव डिवीजन है वो उसका ऑर्डर क्या है. सो इन ड्यूरिंग गुप्ता पीरियड दिस विल बी द ऑर्डर. दे डिड आस्क क्वेश्चन ऑन आई थिंक ड्यूरिंग मुगल empire, but they can ask question from other topics, other eras also. Right on, next point. Many settlements below district level, were known by various names. Such as Patta, Bhumi, Pathak, Petha, At the village level, Gramika and Gramadhyaksh, played an important role in administration. Next, Vishayapati was assisted in administration. Vishayapati was assisted in administration by prominent members of town such as Nagar Shresthin, who is bracket में आप लिख लो chief merchant or banker, chief merchant / banker. Nagar Shresthin, chief merchant / banker. Sarthvaha, in bracket write down chief Karwa trader, Karwa trader are basically who roam around different places and do the trading. Chief Karwa trader. Pratham Kullika, chief artisan, chief artisan, and Pratham Kayasth, Chief Revenue Collector. Chief Revenue Collector. Pratham Kayasth, Chief Revenue Collector. Important officials, write down, important officials at central level, important officials at central level were called Kumar Amatya, were called Kumar Amatya, were called Kumar Amatya. Sandhi Vigrah was Minister of Foreign Affairs. Sandhi Vigrah was Minister of Foreign Affairs. नाम से भी क्लियर है. संधि मीन्स फ्रेंडशिप, विग्रह मीन्स हॉस्टिलिटी. संधि विग्रह was Minister of Foreign Affairs. These are about administration. Write down the next point. Gupta kings focused more on cavalry than horse chariots. Gupta kings focused more on cavalry than horse chariots. More on cavalry than horse chariots. This is about the military administration. That chariot warfare was quite prominent, but during Gupta period you find that chariot warfare now is declining, and directly riding on horses, and not only horses, you also have great archers while riding on horses. Lot of investment occurred here in cavalry. It was more efficient. Cavalry is more efficient in warfare. Cavalry जो है बहुत faster. सबसे पहले war में जो सबसे बड़ा benefit जो होता है, how fast you are moving. I may also teach medieval India. In medieval India, a very prominent theme is that how few thousands of Turks were able to defeat so many Rajput kingdoms. Not lakhs, not hundreds, but not also lakhs. Few thousand were able to defeat some of the great kingdoms in the region of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, etc. And we are talking about some of the most powerful rulers who were known for their bravery. Rajput clans were known for their bravery. Despite that, how they actually were defeated. And one of the most important reason is that Rajput kingdoms did not invest into cavalry. They maintained elephants, but between elephants, horses will always win, simply because of their speed, right? And they were of course great archers also. Turks, the Turks, they were great archers also. So cavalry compared to chariot warfare, cavalry is more efficient because of fast moving warfare. Simple reason, right? Next. One of the aspect which I am writing it here, I will explain it also here only. Villagers were subjected to forced labor called Vishti. Villagers were subjected to forced labor called Vishti. Forced labor called Vishti. देखो ये देखो क्या है concept. Vishti, by the way, is not Genesis in Gupta period. Vishti is also mentioned in Earth Shastra. So it has Genesis in Mauryan period. But Vishti becomes quite prominent during Gupta period. Now Vishti is considered as a type of tax that people who cannot pay taxes, they have to do work for free. What will be those works? For example, let's say clearing forest land and maintaining it for agricultural land, right? So lot of work, or for example, let's say taking care of an army cantonment, that there is an army settlement, you have to take care of that, you have to serve them. So many such things which people were made to do without paying them, because these are people who cannot pay taxes. So Vishti was considered as a type of tax, and people who cannot pay taxes, they have to do free labor, and there is a term for it called Vishti. And I will repeat, even though this becomes very popular during Gupta period, it did not originate during Gupta period. It originated much before that. Okay, आप लिख सकते हो. The term is also mentioned in Arthashastra. The term is also mentioned in Arthashastra. Arthashastra. However, during Gupta period, it became quite popular. It became quite popular and was considered a type of tax. A type of tax. Give the next heading in administration only. Shreni. Or guild. Shreni. So the term guild, it comes from again medieval Europe. That in medieval Europe you find that many people who basically used same economic activity, who were involved in same type of occupation, they formed their own grouping. Such groupings were called guilds. So there is a very famous word called guilds of merchants. But then you find that these guilds of merchants also existed in ancient India, starting from Mahajanpat period. So guilds of merchants existed in Mahajanpat period also, in Mauryan period also. But because Guptas were the rulers who focused most on trade in ancient India, that these Shrenis became quite prominent. You find mention of Shrenis throughout India, in the region of Bengal, in Gujarat, in Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, in Deccan region. Throughout India you find mention of Shrenis. And these Shrenis basically again involve people who are doing same type of occupation. But there can be a Shreni of artisans also. Apart from Shreni of merchants and traders, there can be a Shreni of artisans also. Often these Shrenis enjoyed lot of autonomy in their administration. They had their own rules and regulations. Let's say, for example, if a member does something wrong, then he was punished as per the law of Shreni, not as per the royal law. But royal law, of course, does not have to, let's say, for example, completely contradict what Shreni law will be. So if there is a conflict, of course, royal law is going to supersede. But for a lot of things, especially for simple crimes, they had their own rules and regulations, and they had their own way of giving punishment. Shrenis also worked as bankers, that they provided loans to people who are in requirement and who have to start a new business. So this is also quite prominent during this period of time. And they enjoyed lot of autonomy by kings in their day-to-day working and in their day-to-day administration. So आप just लिख सकते हो. It means an association of, it means an association of traders, merchants and artisans, association of traders, merchants and artisans, this system of guild began during Mahajanpat period, and continued through Mauryan period, began during Mahajanpat period and continued through Mauryan period. Generally, a separate Shreni existed for a particular group of persons, engaged in same vocation, existed for a particular group of persons engaged in same vocation. They were often governed by their own laws. They were often governed by their own laws and enjoyed certain immunities. And enjoyed certain immunities. They also worked as banks. They also worked as banks and provided loans to people. Provided loans to people. Provided loans to people. Write down a next bullet point. Elements of feudalism are found. Elements of feudalism are found. Elements of feudalism are found in Gupta administration. In Gupta administration. In Gupta administration. So now let me explain what feudalism is. Feudalism as a word emerges again from medieval Europe. It was popularized by many medieval philosophers, most importantly being Karl Marx himself, that where Karl Marx writes that there will be a transition of economic system, right? So this transition of economic system, for example, feudalism to mercantile capitalism to socialism to communism. So what feudalism in Europe meant, and you find similarities with India also, with some differences. So feudalism in Europe basically meant that kings no longer were very powerful. I'm talking about medieval Europe, 11th, 12th century of Europe. Kings were no longer very powerful. They were very much dependent upon their local chiefs, who are called now feudal lords. These feudal lords had a very large tract of land for themselves. They maintained a private army to take care of that land. Many people lived in that private land who were paid for it, but very less wages. And if, let's say, for example, king requires their assistance, then they may assist king with their private army. So king does not have enough resources, king does not have enough power to have a very large standing army of its own. The real power lies in many feudal lords of the kingdom who have their own private army, and that private army is to take care of this large tract of land where they are doing agriculture. Agriculture is the most important economic activity. More or less, it's a more complex system, but more or less, this is what feudalism in Europe was. So how the meaning of this term feudalism in India. So even though you do not find this concept that you have this large tract of land where you have vassal relationship, vassal feudal relationship, you do not find that, but nonetheless we do find that kings weakened and they were very much dependent upon local rulers. Local rulers became more prominent, and local rulers, they are rulers also, and they are also working for administration. So they are administrators as well as rulers. That is an element of feudalism. That if you are a ruler as well as administrator, then you have more autonomy compared to, let's say, a centralized administration, which, let's say, what it was during Mauryan time. So in Gupta time, we will not say that feudalism creeps up in the society. That will be perhaps during Harshvardhana we can say that. But you do find some early elements of feudalism, that feudal lords in the course of time, they became quite prominent. So what are those examples? Write down. Major part of empire was held by feudatory chiefs. Major part of empire was held by feudatory chiefs. Feudatory chiefs. Now compare that with Mauryan Empire. That in Mauryan Empire, even you have all these centers at village level, group of village level, etc., etc. So there is a very tight control. Even though some historians will argue that what it is written in earlier historical text, that it is an entirely centralized empire, It may not have been very centralized, but definitely we are talking about a very tight control by Patliputra itself. But here, let's say for example, Samudragupta emerges victorious throughout his campaign in Deccan and South, but they are not part of his territory first, and even there, the reasons where he actually annexes those territories, he is very much dependent upon local chiefs. Local chiefs who are not his bureaucrats, who are administrator, but they pay tribute to Samudragupta. So there is a difference. In Mauryan Empire, you have bureaucracy at local level. These are not local rulers. These are bureaucrats who have to take care of local administration, provincial administration. In this case, we are not talking about bureaucrats. We are talking about rulers who have to pay tribute to the emperor, but they are quite autonomous also. And they are not typical bureaucrats appointed by the emperor. That is the fundamental difference between a centralized empire and a feudal type of system. So next point आप लिख सकते हो. These chiefs offered homage and paid tribute to the empire. These chiefs offered homage and paid tributes to the empire. Next, religious functionaries were granted land free of tax, Again remember, it was started by Satavahanas, but now continued by Guptas also. High officials were paid in cash. But some of them were also given land grants. Some of them were also given land grants. This is also a feudal element in the administration. Providing, rather than paying regular salary, you give land to people, right? So feudalism का एक देखो सबसे बड़ा limitation क्या है? As long as we are talking about a very powerful empire or a powerful emperor, he can unite feudal lords and they have no other way but to accept authority of emperor. But the moment empire becomes weakened or the emperor is not strong enough, then these feudal lords will start asserting their independence, because after all they are doing most of the work in their provinces and they have to now share that revenue with empire. Right, that will not happen in case of, let's say, a proper centralized empire where you have bureaucrats who are already getting regular salary. They are appointees by the emperor. They are not given land grant. This land does not belong to them. They are here to take care of the administration part. So this is one of the limitation of feudalism. So जैसे the next topic I am going to discuss, that will be Harshvardhana. Harshvardhana के time में feudalism is very much now part of society. But Harshvardhan is so powerful that he is able to unite all feudal lords under his banner. But the moment he dies, his kings and daughters, they cannot do. In fact, they are killed by many of the feudal lords. And Pushyabhuti dynasty comes to an end very soon after death of Harshvardhan. So एक feudalism का एक बहुत बड़ा limitation ये भी होगा. Give the next heading, economy. Economy during Gupta age. Economy during Gupta age. Write down. They issued largest number of gold coins, which were called dinaras. They issued largest number of gold coins, which were called dinaras. Even today you will find dinar as currency of some of the countries. So that comes Gulf countries especially. So that does tell you that type of trade relationship which was during, especially in later Gupta period. And the term dinara became so popular in different part of the world that dinara is currency of some of the Gulf countries. Anyways, silver coins were also issued. Silver coins were also issued, but number of copper coins were less. Silver coins were also issued, but number of copper coins were less. So again I will repeat this thing, that जो coinage है, right now we are talking about a coinage system where coinage derives its value from intrinsic, it has intrinsic value. It does not, so for example, gold issued by an emperor, already there is a acceptance of that, because we have to assume that if it is being issued by emperor, then this gold is of very high quality, right? It has all the sign of empire and everything. तो वो डिमांड ज्यादा में होगा. तो कॉइनेज कैसे काम करता है, अब इसके लिए थोड़ा सा इकोनॉमिक्स हमको जाना पड़ेगा. बट आइडियली ये होगा कि यहाँ पे जो कॉइनेज है, द नंबर, द वैल्यू विल नॉट बी डिसाइडेड बाई, लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल, as right now it is, you have this 100 rupees note and all that, but it will be decided by the weights of coin, that you can have a coin of some weight which will have some value. Let's say for example there is a unit, but jo next coin hoga, that will be, let's say for example there is a random unit x. So this coin, let's say for example if it has a value of 1x, then a coin twice that weight will be 2x. In modern times that does not happen, right? तो यहाँ पे जो value होगा, that value will be decided based on the weight of coin, not depending upon कि king ने बोल दिया कि इस coin का value ये है, and people will accept it. That so silver and copper of course will have less value. Now this x will not be x, it will be x by 10 or x by 100. So silver and copper will not have the same value. Okay. अब ये जो है, अब इकोनॉमिक डिस्कशन में हम चले जाएंगे. इफ यू कैन डू दैट, तब तो सारे, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल इफ प्रिंटिंग मोर मनी वाज द सॉल्यूशन टू इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम्स, फिर तो सारे कंट्री बहुत रिच होते. सो इफ लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल यू कैन इशू कॉपर कॉइंस एंड सिल्वर कॉइंस विद द सेम वैल्यू एज गोल्ड कॉइंस, देन तो सारे इकोनॉमिक वूज खत्म हो जाएंगे. बट दैट इज नॉट हाउ इकोनॉमी वर्क्स. अब वो इकोनॉमिक्स का पूरा क्लास होगा, दैट विल बी डिस्कस्ड इन डिटेल इन इकोनॉमी क्लासेस, बट इट विल लीड टू हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन. एनीवेज, राइट ऑन नेक्स्ट बुलेट पॉइंट. There was decline in long distance trade. There was decline in long distance trade. Long distance trade. However, inland trade was prosperous. Inland trade was prosperous. Land was divided into many categories. Next bullet point. Land was divided into many categories such as क्षेत्र, in bracket कल्टिवेबल लैंड जहां पे आप एग्रीकल्चर कर सकते हो, कल्टिवेबल लैंड, खिला, वेस्ट लैंड इन ब्रैकेट, वेस्ट लैंड जो बंजर जमीन होगा, खिला, वेस्ट लैंड, अप्रहत, that also means jungle or wasteland. Aprahat. Vasti, which is habitable land. Habitable land. And Gapt Sarah, this was pastoral land for animal rearing. Pastoral land. Land grants were given, write down the next bullet point. Land grants were given, known as land grants were given, known as Agrahar, Agrahar. इसमें एक लाइन लिख लेना, Agrahar, given to Brahmins, given to Brahmins, a tax-free land which was also hereditary. A tax-free land which was also hereditary. A tax-free land which was also hereditary. So you find this agrahar, practice of agrahar, giving tax-free land to Brahmins, quite popular during Gupta period and Vaktak period. Vaktak rulers also did it. And same practice was adopted even on a much larger scale by Pallavas, Cholas and Chalukyas. And such land, जो settlement occurred, let's say for example a village emerged from this land, such village was called Brahmadeya village. तो आप लिख सकते हो, villages on such land, villages on such land was called Brahmadeya. Brahmadeya. Then there is another land grant called Dev Agrahar. Dev Agrahar. It was given to Brahmins as well as merchants. It was given to Brahmins as well as merchants. For repair and maintenance of temples. Repair and maintenance of temples. Next, various type of land measurement units emerged. Various type of land measurement unit emerged. Various type of land measurement unit emerged, such as Angul, Hast, Angul, Hast, Dhanu. ये स्मॉलर यूनिट ऑफ मेजरमेंट्स हैं, बट जो लार्जर यूनिट ऑफ मेजरमेंट्स थे, दे वेयर, आप लिख सकते हो अंगुल, हस्त, धनु, स्मॉलर यूनिट ऑफ मेजरमेंट, स्मॉलर यूनिट्स ऑफ मेजरमेंट, स्मॉलर यूनिट्स ऑफ मेजरमेंट. अधवापा, द्रोणवापा, कुल्यवापा, Adhvapa, Dronvapa and Kulyavapa, they were larger units of measurement. They were larger units of measurement. ये लास्ट ईयर यूपीएससी ने यूं का यूं क्वेश्चन पूछा था. सिंपली दे हैड गिवन दिस क्वेश्चन दैट द टर्म द्रोणवाप एंड कुल्लेवाप is related to which of the following. One of the option was land measurement unit, which was correct. उसके और भी बहुत सारे लोग होंगे ना, सिर्फ ब्राह्मण्स नहीं होंगे, ब्राह्मण्स के अलावा भी बहुत सारे लोग होंगे. क्लास इज नॉट ओवर येट. Keep quiet. Guys, please keep quiet. Yes. हाँ तो जैसे हाँ that's a very important question. He is asking that जो अग्रहर lands है, if let's say for example a village settlement emerges here, then what type of setup it was? So it was first of all tax free, it was hereditary, and more than not this, यहाँ पे जो settlement बनेगा, now that settlement may not only include Brahmins, they will include in fact all other parts of society. That is how village is going to function. But yes, इस village में Brahmins will have a lot of power. For example, they have power to punish people also. If somebody is doing something wrong, then they have power to punish also. So they enjoyed lot of power also, lot of autonomy. I will not use the word independence, but they enjoyed lot of autonomy in village administration into such type of settlements. बोल सकते हो आप, जो पैट्रियार्क, जो मेन पैट्रियार्क होगा, बोल सकते हो आप, ठीक है. So we will continue this discussion in the next class. It will take about half an hour or perhaps 40 minutes to conclude the discussion. But the next topic we are going to discuss, that will be Pushya Bhutis, Harshvardhan, and we'll also talk about Chalukyas. Pallavas and Chalukyas.